All right. Sorry for the delay. Please, I was thinking maybe you could hear me well. Let's hope that we can go make some progress. So, good evening once again, and thank you for joining for yet another session. Um, this is one of our sessions in our ongoing bootcamp series, and my name is Kenneth. So, it's my honor to have you here. I would quickly share my screen. Today's class is going to focus on data visualization, and we have some practice session to help us master the concept. So we are not only, although we will start with the fundamentals, which will be more of theoretical, but I believe those would help us build the necessary foundation that we'll need in the subsequent sessions we'll have. So for this session, we are going to look at three main things. We'll learn how to, we'll learn about the different charts, different types of visualization options available to us, and then how to decide on which one to use, and then best practices, and then we would now proceed to the hands-on session on how to create our visual. And for this session, we are for the first time going to work with Power BI, right? So it's a wonderful thing that finally we are going to work with Power BI. So these are the three main things we're going to cover in today's session. The three main things we'll cover in today's session. So, sorry about that. I'm trying to hide this. All right, so back to the presentation. Let's start from the basics. What is data visualization? The simple definition we have here is coming from Tableau, and in case you don't know, Tableau is one of the leading companies in when you talk about data visualization, and they have some of the most advanced and most well used visualization tools out there. We have the public, Tableau desktop, and all that. So Tableau defined data visualization as the graphical representation of information and data. The graphics is the meat there, and then not really, the data itself is the meat there, represented in form of graphics, right? So it makes sense and it's pretty straightforward by going by this definition. When you represent data, instead of presenting data in their raw form, in form of rows and columns and then numbers, you design them in graphical form, and that the need for this cannot be overemphasized, being that as humans we tend to visual data or visual representation of information tend to stick more, and it's easier for us to grasp, to make sense of such data when represented in graphical form than presenting them bare as rows and columns of data, hundreds and thousands of rows and columns of data. So that's the definition. And why is this even important? Why is it necessary? Why does data visualization matter? Or okay, let's start with what is it in the first place. I think we've already defined it, right? But here it's just like to add to kind of to understand it better why we need to do it. The first thing here is that it's a core aspect of data analysis process. Yes, in data analysis, you can analyze data in various forms. You can choose to use apply statistical equations to your data to arrive at the insight you are looking for. You can also choose to convert your data into visuals, images, in order to also extract insights from that. And in other cases, it could even be a combination of these. Other times, you would apply some machine learning models, algorithms, and the rest. But the message here is that data visualization is one of those ways you can process or analyze your data. And it transforms complex data sets into an easy to understand, easy to digest visual format. It makes it easy for us to unravel patterns in complex data, being that in place of a million rows and columns of data, you can simply represent them as an image, as certain pixels on. So like you can see here now, we have this very chart showing right here. We could see hundreds of data points, right, spread across different categories. We can see the red, the orange, the green, right? Each one of them represent different categories of the data. But if we were to just present this as plain data, right, we would be counting hundreds of columns, hundreds of rows of data, right, just to make sense of this, and it would be difficult, more difficult to comprehend. And not just that, it is easier for us to see the relationship, that there is a strong correlation here in this data, and the fact that it's in visual format enables us to see that more quickly than when we are scrolling through the data in tabular form. The third thing here is that, okay, right, the fourth rather, is that it enables us to identify trends and outliers within our data. And in terms of trends, we can even see that from here, right? In terms of from here, we can see that this Brazilian development, right? City index and the education. There's a strong positive correlation here, right? As one rises, the other one tends to rise as well, right? There's the other thing to know about that, and it enhances decision making by providing clear visual representation of data, supports storytelling by adding context and narrative to analysis. Also, it enables us to monitor key performance indicators in real time. Finally, it enhances the understanding of data across diverse audience. Image or pictures are some of those things that people can easily relate to, irrespective of their language or level of literacy. It's easier in many cases to convey information in form of images, right? People tend to relate to that more quickly than when you start talking about some advanced statistics and the rest, right? So that's a little bit about data visualization. Next, in data analysis, there are so many forms of visuals, right? You can choose, or different ways you can choose to represent your data. But not all options available to you are really the best. What I mean by this is that each visual has its own downsides, has its own best use cases, when you are supposed to use that and when you are not supposed to use that, right? So now this slide would present to us some of the things we need to consider before deciding on the visual to use. So an important thing to note here is that it's not just one of these um, points that you take note of. You take note of a combination of these, right, as they come together to decide for, or to determine for you the type of visual to use in your case. So the first thing here is the audience, the people you are presenting, you are preparing the data or visual for, right? The second is the data type itself, the type of data you want to visualize, the number of variables in your data. Let's say you are plotting just one data contained in one column, or you have data contained or spread across multiple columns. These all determine the type of visual to use. Finally, here we have the size of data points. The visual you use to represent a data of 1,000 rows, or let's say a few tens of rows, might really not be the most suitable when you have a data that is spread across, let's say, hundreds of thousands of rows, right? So depending on the case, depending on the size of your data point, the visual type to choose would also change. Now let's look at them more closely. The first one is the audience. And the key word here is simplicity. Simplicity in the sense that for many viewers, what I mean here is that you need to consider the people that you are preparing this data, this chart or these visuals for, right? And for many applications, simple and straightforward visuals like bar charts and pie charts actually can convey the information you want to convey, right? But there are times that it is not really possible, or maybe you want to unravel certain complex relationships. In those cases, you need to add more and more, establish more and more relationships across the different columns that you want to plot. So in that case, the in that case, advanced visuals might be more helpful. But in deciding whichever visual to use, you have to consider those that would eventually consume this data, right? You have to consider them. If there are people that are very familiar with interpreting data, they are very maybe fast with this, and they can easily relate. Well, you can go more complex, but if your audience are not really that data savvy, then it's safer to stick to the simpler visualization options, or you provide means that would help them to quickly understand the information you want to convey. Failure to do this might result in people are deriving or extracting the wrong insights, or even missing insights altogether, right? So your audience holds a very high stake in your choice of visual. Then the other one is data type. Although we've not really had an exhaustive class on data types, but I intend that by this class we will have an idea of data types. What are data types? Data types only they simply refer to the different ways that your data can be represented. Sort of, we all know that computers represent that everything you see in computer is basically composed of or comprised of zeros and ones, right? So the different ways that the computer can differentiate between a text data and an image data, or a number, numerical data, and the rest. These are what we call data types, right? And in broad terms, what might apply to us in most scenarios as data analysts, we have three different categories here, three classes of data here. We have the quantitative data, that is numerical, when you deal with numbers. We have qualitative, and then we have date time data. Quantitative data, they refer to data in form of numbers or out results of certain measurements and the rest. And we still have within it, we have two main categories, right? We have discrete and continuous. In discrete quantitative or discrete numerical, values are represented in form of let's say certain groups. For instance, values can take only specific, your data points can only take up specific values, or better said, the observations you have or measurements you have can only take certain values. For instance, in a class of students, it is not possible to have 1.5 or 3.5 students in a class, because we can't have a half human being, obviously. So in that case, that particular column keeping record of number of students in a class can only contain whole numbers, or what we call integers, right? Then the other quantitative data is continuous. In this case, your observation or measurement can take any number at all, including whole numbers and fractions, right? Examples could include distance or the result of, let's say, the temperature of a room, or it could also be, let's say, the surface area of a balloon, which can vary, right? A balloon can measure a certain value when inflated, and a different, let's say, when fully inflated, or a different value altogether when not inflated, right? And the temperature of a room can vary from 3.6, I mean, let's say 36.7, 40, 50, and so on and so forth, right? So these are continuous values, continuous numerical or continuous quantitative. Okay, so those are for quantitative data. The third thing here is the second one actually is qualitative data. Qualitative data, as the name implies, is that they are more descriptive, right? They are more descriptive and not numerical, right? So, and we have them in three forms. We have the categorical, we have the ordered, and we have the binary. In categorical, data falls into groups. Categorical can be maybe the country a particular individual originates from, right? Let's say you are a Nigerian, or you are from Ghana, or you are from Malaysia, and so forth. The second one here is ordered. In ordered quantitative, or I mean, sorry, in ordered qualitative data, your data is usually your data follows certain natural orders, right? In the sense that even though there are categories, right, there are some sort of ranking among them. So if I'm counting in first, let's say, position a student takes in class, first position, second position, third position, and so on, or your level of education, let's say nursery, primary, secondary, and then higher institution, right? University level. You could see that on a scale, if you are moving from left to right, then normally the lowest should be placed somewhere at the left, then highest somewhere to the right. You can't you can't move from nursery to the tertiary, right? Jumping, I mean, while jumping the other categories in between, right? You can't move from nursery and then tertiary and then come back to secondary. No, except it's maybe I've not even. It's not really possible. So in that case, we have ordered. Ordered can also mean the different. Let's say in the stock exchange market, we want to see the positions of each company, right? Let's say Google is topping the list, followed by Microsoft. You could see that that rank has been established. Tomorrow the rank might vary, but but the orderliness is still preserved in a sense that the position a particular observation occupies can affect the interpretation you give to it, right? The student that takes up first position in class has a higher reward or award than a student with second position, and so on and so forth. Now, that is it about ordered qualitative data. Then thirdly, we have the binary. Binary is pretty straightforward. It's a case of when a data can only take one out of two values, right? It is either you have eaten, or like it's either you have taken your dinner or you've not. It's either you an order has been um, should I say approved or not. It is either a customer made a purchase this month or did not, right? There is no in between, right? There's no in between. Nothing can fall between that. So whenever you notice such, maybe something is in the sense of like we looked at in the other example whereby we considered orders that were returned, we saw that it's either an order was returned or was not, right? So the best way to represent that kind of data is as a binary. Then lastly, we have the date time data, or what others may call time series. This one shows data or observations as they vary with time. They are time-based variations, right? So those are the different data types. So having had a sense of the data types, right, as a factor that could influence your choice of visual, we now proceed to the next one, which is a number of variables. A variable, you could also refer to it as a feature, right? You could refer to it as a feature, and in broad sense, a variable is usually represented as a column, right? I think we've already hinted on that previously. Whatever you have in your column is a variable. Then the ones in your rows make up your observations, right? So the number of variables you want to visualize can also determine. And in this, we have three different possible outcomes. It's either you are visualizing a single variable in the sense that it's just one column of data, maybe only the sales. You want to see the kind of different clusters in your sales. Then, in that case, it's referred to as univariate, right? Uni, as we all know, single or singular, right? Univariate. Example could be you just want to see the distribution of sales value, right? You just want to see how the sales value or your sales are distributed. You want to see which cluster, maybe people that place orders, are they usually placing order around let's say um, 5,000 to 7,000. The majority of orders placed are within 5,000 to $7,000 or less, and similar stuff, right? So that's it for univariate. Univariate, the point to note here is that univariate involves one column or one feature or one variable, as the name implies. Secondly, we have bivariate, whereby you are plotting two values. And take note that the value you are plotting could be, if it's for instance univariate, it could be a univariate qualitative or univariate quantitative, right? So all this would determine the choice of visual to use. Then thirdly, okay, right now I'm back to bivariate. We have, let's say, in our example above, we just wanted to see the distribution of our sales, but this time around, we want to see how these sales break down by different customer segments, right? So we are now looking at the column that contains the actual sales and the column that contains customer segments. A typical example of this is a bar chart, right? In bar chart, we have the categorical data, right, or the qualitative, then we have the numerical or quantitative. Then thirdly, we have multivariate. Multivariate involves three or more variables. It could be number, number, text, 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 number, or any combination of these, right? But it involves three or more variables. That's the point to note about multivariate. Now, the fourth thing to consider is the size of your data points. And as you can see here in the chart here, we could see a very messy, let me call it messy kind of visual, in the sense that there are too many points here that it's just difficult to unravel what is really going on here, right? We have so many data points here that it becomes so hard to really make a sense of this vision. And the issue is that the issue may not necessarily be that scatter plot is not the right chart option to use, but the size of the data points we want to visualize. In this case, we have about 7,000 points on a small area of our screen. making it so hard to really make a sense of what is going on here. So the other thing you have to factor in is the fact that the size of your data points, like the number of data points you want to visualize, can have an effect or is a factor to consider when choosing your data visual type. Okay, so in this section, we have seen what factors to consider when choosing the right data type, right? Now, the next thing we want to do here is we want to quickly go through examples of data, our visuals, right? Starting with the most common ones, the ones we most likely would deal with more often than the rest, right? And by this, we would learn the considerations here, like why this visual might be suitable for a certain application and then when it may not be suitable, right? So we have here bar charts. Everything you see here are just different ways that we can use bar chart to represent data. From left to right, we have the normal bar chart, whereby the row here, or rather the x-axis represents the categories, right? Or category could be qualitative, right? So this could be the name of the country plotted against their population or GDP, right? So we have from left to right here the categorical, then we have from bottom to top the numerical. So in general, bar charts are used to represent a let's say a bivariate, right? It's bivariate in nature in the sense that it involves two variables, right? At the same time, the variables are made up of one numerical, another one categorical, right? You could see it here as well. Um, okay, well, in a sense, okay, yeah, we have this as a well, we have another form of bar chart here, but the tricky thing here is that okay, this is also representing the like we have the numerical here, which is the age and the population, right? Population is also numerical. So it's trying to see this. Actually, I did not really pay much attention, but this is a strange use case though. But the most popular use case for bar charts is usually for numerical and then categorical, right? Now, this is not a typical use case though. The other one I would want to show us here is that depicts the typical use case is here where we have the the other bar chart. We have the coloring here used to represent different groups, right? This is like we have the different groups here in clusters. We have the our main category here, our main value here, right? The categorical and then the numerical. But then we want to see how these vary over another um, value. Let's say these show the countries and their GDP, right? Countries and GDP. Blue represents, let's say, USA, Canada, China, right? USA, Canada, China, USA, Canada, China, USA, Canada, China, right? These are the different groups in our data. But then we want to see how these vary over another variable. Like in the case of, let's say this is 2010, this is 2012, this is 2014, for instance. We want to see these variations, how they spread across over another variable. Then we have this showing a population pyramid, right? In this case, we don't just have the numerical, we also have the categorical, and at the same time, we have um, this is like this is not a simple bar chart, right? What you have to take note of here is that this is not just a simple bar chart. It is bar chart, but this is like a kind of a composite in the sense that this is a standalone bar chart, this is another standalone bar chart, joined together, like spiced together so that we can be able to draw more insights. For instance, here we have the female and the male placed side by side. We want to draw a kind of comparison, and it's showing us population and then different genders. So we have the female here, we have the male. If I place this in isolation, I may not be able, let's say I just created a bar chart showing only male, right? And then another independent or standalone bar chart showing only female. I can draw much insight, but I might lose the insight here, whereby we have more um, females, and in this upper, I think this upper part is representing something like age. Yeah. So I think it's not showing everything here, but from the original image here, this upper part is representing how different age groups, how I mean the distribution of population of different age groups, then and gender as well. So in this case, as the age increases, we tend to have more female here, like at this topmost part at the 90s, right? We could see that the males have significantly reduced. Then we have more females than male. So the same thing applies to 80s. So as the age group increases, the females tends to have more representation than the male, right? So the insight we could draw here is that females have longer life expectancy or similar thing. So that is it about this one. The other one I want to show us is we have other um, visual types that I will just briefly talk about. Here we have the histogram, and it will be tricky in a way. Maybe it's easy to think a histogram and the one we've seen before, which is this bar chart, are the same thing, but they're actually not. You would typically want to um, use a histogram when you are making a plot of let's say a distribution, and in many cases it could just be a single variable you are plotting the distribution of. In this case, we are seeing the ratings of movies, that is IMDb movie ratings. Then the column we use to plot this very data is a numerical one showing the ratings of those movies, which is that's from I think from 0 to somewhere around 10, right? That's the rating. Then the vertical part is showing us the different the number of observations within this rating, right? So here, bringing them together, we have that most movies fall within the 5.0 and let's say 8, between 5 and 8 point rate, right? But then the underlying data for this is a numerical one, right? And you could see that most of our observations or points fall around this value, right? So that's one thing you have to take note of here. The other one here is scatter plot. Scatter plot, you would want to use scatter plot when you are plotting number with another number, numerical, right? By this, you could see that as this part, the vertical part which represents the mass, right, is going up, we also have the horizontal part which represents the length, increasing from left to right, right? And then any point here, this is now like the space here, and the value we are plotting can take up any point here in space, right? Such that we have somewhere around here, we have 6,000 corresponding to 180, a body mass of 6,000 and um, length of 180, right? Somewhere here we have, let's say somewhere here should be around let's say 1,500 and 100 and let's say 100 and 192. So let's say okay, somewhere here will be midpoint, which will be 195. So this should be around 192, right? So in scatter plot, we use scatter plot typically to represent numbers like two or more numerical. And you would notice that here we have, in this legend, we have different shapes used to represent the values we have plotted, right? Now, this is now the case of multivariate plot, whereby we use a kind of differentiation mechanism, right, to still show another column. This column here, the shape here could be a column that represents species, right? It's a column that represents species. The length here is another column that represents the length of the whatever they are plotting here. Then the mass here is another column, right? So you have a column representing the column, the mass, another one representing the length, another one representing the species. So in this case, we have three variables coming together to give us this visual. The first one, the first dimension is represented vertically, the second one is represented horizontally. Then the third one is represented using shape, the shape of the marker, right? The shape of the marker is what we used to represent the third one, right? There could also be other more complex case whereby even the color of the marker and the size of the marker can be used to still represent something more, right? Adding to the granularity. Now, right next to it, we have another scatter plot, right? This is a simple case of numerical and numerical. You could see here that all points are plotted with the same color, right, and the same marker, right, because these are just two numbers. I mean, two variables, right? This is a case of two variables. Numbers, that's the horsepower and the miles per gallon. So this and this are basically the same thing. The difference now is the number of variables that comprise or that they are made up of, right? So then we have donut chart. Donut chart, you could use donut chart to represent the different compositions of a data, like the different compositions of a certain category. Like we have category 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we see that category 3 is the biggest, made the biggest contribution. If this is, let's say, the amount donated by a group of friends for a project, then category 3 made the highest contribution, followed by let's say category 6, 5, category 6, 5, 2, 1, then finally 4. So you could use bar chart. Bar chart is one that people can easily relate with, right? Bar chart, sorry, donut chart, pie chart, and bar chart, and the rest. Those are easy to represent. But the downside of donut chart and pie chart is that when you have too many categories in your data, it becomes unideal because it becomes difficult to know the difference. Like as humans, we find it harder to read angles than lines, right? So the same information you presented here can be represented with a bar chart. So it depends on preference and the number of categories that you want to show. The same applies to pie chart. Pie chart and this, they are basically the same thing, just that this one is more visually appealing, right? Now we have B-swarm plot. Looking at B-swarm plot here, it shows different, it's still similar to what it tells us, similar thing as histogram, but in this case it is showing us the different data points within our class. This is a typical example of a B-swarm plot spread across different categories, right? So the ones at the topmost show certain class certain customer segments. Like the color here represents customer segments, right? Then the size of the marker, you could see that California here is the biggest, followed by New York, right? Represents the value. If it is sales made across different states, then you could see that for this particular audience, for this particular customer segment, let's say this is home office customer segment, then California made the highest sales. Then if you come to here again, California still tops in all the different, I think in all the three different customer segments, right? Now the difference here is that we are able to see the individual data points that make up this, but in histogram just gives us a summation, like a kind of an aggregation, sort of. It gives us values in intervals. Let's say interval of 5 to this could be interval of 5 to 6, right? Then it counts the number of observations here. Interval of 6 to 7 counts the number of observations, and then the length of the bar increases as the number of observations increases. But we are not able to see the individual data points. In this case now, if it were just a histogram we used, then everything here would have been lumped up into one bar, that the size, the length would be determined by the value, by the number of observations. But we might lose the insight here that California is the highest, right? We might lose this insight in this case. So each one of them, each one of our visuals has its own downsides. So that's why it's important to take note of that when visualizing. Then we have heat maps. The first thing to note in heat map is looking at the color scale, right? So here we have from this light, should I call it light green, moving up to something around navy blue. I'm not so good with colors, but I guess I got it. So the bar here shows us the least value possible. Going up, it's graduating to the highest possible value. So the thicker or the darker the box or the pixel here, the higher the value. So this is showing us Rotten Tomato rating. Then this is also showing us so by this it means that we are seeing that the rating with this dark shade, right? As the darkness of the shade increases, that is how the rating also increases, or the number of records rather. This is the number of records. So increases. So here we could see that the number of records here that have about I think 8.0 rating, right? Yeah, something like that. So we have Rotten Tomato ratings and being and then rating. Yeah. So the darker the shade, the more the count of observations within it. You could also apply it in things like temperature. So the hotter the month, or the hotter the temperature of the month of the year or the day of the month, the whichever color scale you are using in that case should show that. So perhaps the white shows the least, right? Number of maybe regions that have, let's say, least lowest temperature or something like that. Now, the other one we look at, which will be the last for now, is the line charts. Line charts show us we would normally use line chart to show things, relationships like time series, right? Whereby value of like trends, it shows us it's very good at showing us trends, how a particular value varies with time, right? How a particular value varies with time. You could see the connection that this price of this given product on this also date in the year in 2005. So that this point move down, move down, move up, right? And we those in stock trading, those into stock trading and let's say cryptocurrency and all that, they find it really useful because it shows us trends over time and market movement and all that, or price movement. They have many other names to that they normally associate it with. But use this mostly to show trends over time, right? These are just the few examples we can look at for now. But if you are looking for more insights, you can come to, um, let's say, check out Vega Lite. Everything we've displayed so far is from Vega Lite, the example from their chart library. So when you come here, it shows you not just the charts, but also example codes that you can use to generate them. But this is when you now start coding, right? So I feel for now, what you could use this for is to just know about the different chart options available to you. You could see that they are grouped into, we have single view plots, we have bar charts, right? Under single view plots, we have single view plot could, yeah, we have bar charts. We have other kinds of plot that we can have. We have histograms, density plots, and dot plots, right? You can just come here and take a look at the different charts and then learn more about charts. The line charts, we only looked at this one, but then there are many other ones here that you can try out. From here, you can actually gain insights into what is possible and then when to use each one of them. So let's take one example. Let's say we are looking at a simple bar chart, right? In simple bar chart, here's the code that generates it, right? And then I think there's a learn more here. Oh, it's not showing again. There is. Let's see. Yeah, let's open it and then see what it has for us. Taking some time. I think that's taking a lot of time, but just take note of this. All right, it's opened already. This is for those advanced users that before you can interact with this, you need to know how to define relationships. That's using Vega Lite. You have to read the documentation and then how to define relationships and then connect this. But this is actually for advanced use case, right? So for now, you can use this place for insights to gain insights about the different types of visuals. Another place where you can achieve the same purpose is on Tableau. Let's say Tableau um, V's of the thing, right? When you come here, you would be able to see what many other people are creating, right? So let's give it some time to load. You can see many different visual options available to you, and you can achieve this with Tableau. Tableau is another visualization tool, right? But we are not covering Tableau now, so I'm just here to show you that there are so many visual options available to you that sometimes it's easy to get lost, right? So the fundamentals we covered will help us to know what to use and when to use a certain type of visual, because it's actually very easy to get lost in this sea of visuals, right? So that's one thing to keep in mind. All right. So having said that, we can now move on to the next session, which is let's talk about data visualization tools. Why do we really need them? We need them because without these tools, we have, okay, let's say data visualization tools could be Power BI, Tableau, or other software. We have Flourish, we have many other tools that enable us to represent. Even Canva is a data visualization tool. We have other ones like Visme. You know, it could be paid or free, right? So these are tools that enable us to represent data in graphical form. So they are very, very helpful because without them, we are likely going to need to start writing codes to, as you can see here, it took over about 96 lines of code to just get this not so pretty bar chart, right? And that is even for those who can code. But imagine you can't code and there are no such tools to help you do that, then you see that it's not possible to get something like this, right? So the data visualization tools are very useful because they help make visualization. They help us to make arrive at our visualization in a matter of minutes, as if your data is already in shape, instead of taking hours to write code, right? Then they because these are already pre-made or pre-built templates, a lot of furnishing has been done to brush them up and make them very presentable. Unlike having to start everything from scratch, you need to start editing and modifying a lot, which takes time, right? The other one is that you can integrate with multiple data sources, and it's also a number of them also allow us to create interactive visuals and dashboards, real-time analytics, and collaborate and customize. So they are very, very handful or helpful tools that we can always refer back to. And a typical example of them is Power BI that we are going to see how to create a visual with today. Now, the next section here, or the next screen here, is about Tableau, or how to create a visual, right? The various steps involved. Of course, number one, you need to connect to a data source. We're going to see how to do this. You need to connect to a data source, then ensure that the data source could be Excel file, like a CSV file, or whichever format, or even a data from the database, right? So once you have them connected to the source, once you have connected to that data source, the next thing is to model your data. We've seen how to connect to a data source. We've seen how to connect to a workbook, a CSV file, right? We've seen how to model and then transform data, handle missing data, and so on. So we've done this, we've done this. What we've not done, perhaps, we've done a little part of creating visual, right? What we've not done, okay, we'll still see how to create a visual today and then communicate findings, right? So for those four steps here, right? You need to keep that in mind because those are the summary of what we are going to do when you want to create your visual. The next thing here is we'll just look at a typical case study of data visualization in project management. Different ways people can use data visualization to aid in decision making. The first is in performance tracking. As a project manager, you might want to visualize project performance metrics like how the budget variance, or how has the anticipated, or should I say projected budget varied with the actual um, spending on the project, or similar things. Or you can also visualize task completion rates, right? How are your the individuals in the team able to complete the task? Let's say you have over 100 key milestones to achieve. How how far are we from the completion of our task? Are we in line? Are we hitting our deadlines and similar things? You could also apply it in risk management or budget management. So details of this are shown in the slides. That's it for project management, just that example. Now, before we proceed, I would like to know if there are questions based on what we've discussed so far, because the next session is going to be the hands-on on Power BI, using Power BI to first of all to understand Power BI, the ecosystem, what is it, what it is not. Then we'll now go on to creating our first visual with Power BI. So I would like to know if there's a question based on what we discussed so far. So you can unmute yourself if possible before we move on to the next session. Okay, no question. Thank you. So we've seen the need for data visualization tools. We now know what data visualization is all about and factors to consider when choosing your visual type and all that. Now is the time to look at one of the tools for visualizing our data. And I would like to make this hands-on actually. So please confirm if you can or you have your data, maybe you are connected with your laptop and can launch your Power BI from your end, because I would like this walkthrough to be hands-on. So please, if it's convenient for you to launch your Power BI and follow along with this session, kindly indicate in the chat. Otherwise, if you would prefer me to do it from my end, then better. But I feel it will be more hands-on if you are doing it from your end. So kindly let me know if you can launch your Power BI. Then at that point, I would stop sharing my screen. You would now share yours, and we would come up with something together. So please let me know if this is possible with you. You could simply reply in the chat or mute. Can you hear me? Can you kindly indicate in the chat if it's possible to?
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Can you
Can
hear
you?
me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you launch your Power BI? Hello?
Okay.
Okay. So once you do that, let me know. So once you launch it, it takes some time to open. It's kind of heavy app. So once you launch it, then you will let me know so that we can proceed with the talking part. It can be so exhausting to talk and talk and talk, but I feel we need it. Yeah. So pardon the session that has been so lengthy and full of talks. Yeah, we still need the fundamentals to proceed. But before we move on to the hands-on proper, let's have a quick introduction to Power BI. What is Power BI? Power BI is a business analytics tool developed by Microsoft. BI there stands for business intelligence, and business intelligence is all about a kind of business methodology that um, we rely on data-driven approach to arrive at key decisions instead of relying on only our gut feelings and intuitions and all that, right? So Power BI is one of the tools that enable us to perform certain analysis related to making business decisions. And there are other tools that can achieve the same purpose as Power BI. We have Tableau. We have Google also has their own tool. We have local, like there are many other tools out there in the market. We have we have I think I've mentioned Visme before now. We have there are many of them actually, but Power BI is one of them that is very, very popular and well known. And the fact that it's a Microsoft product means that the integration capabilities is just um, outstanding, right? So you'll be able to easily, seamlessly integrate with other Microsoft products like Excel and then all that. And remember, I mentioned when we were during our session on Power Query that Power Query that we have in Excel is also available in Power BI, right? So it means that if you are someone that's already used to Microsoft ecosystem, then Power BI will not be so difficult to grasp and figure your ways around, right? So Power BI enables us to transform our data into visually appealing and interactive insights that help in informed decision making. So it comes with a bundle of features or tools that makes it possible for us to connect to various data sources, even databases, spreadsheets, and cloud services, and then to create customizable reports and dashboards. So that's a little introduction. And then Power BI is comprises of three major let's say products within the ecosystem. So Power BI is like an ecosystem, right? Made up of a suite of products. We have Power BI desktop, we have Power BI services, we have Power BI mobile. And what are the differences? Power BI desktop is a free application like the one you have on your device right now. It's Power BI desktop and it is free to use. And it allows us to create, it offers user-friendly interface, meaning that you don't need to write code to create your visuals to interact with your data, right? It comes with a drag and drop functionality and a user-friendly interface, and it enables us to perform advanced data modeling and data transformation, and there are even interactive dashboards and reports that can be shared within the organization. The second one here is Power BI services. Power BI services is the online version of Power BI, right? That is the online extension of it. Just like we have, if you have a Microsoft 365 in your organization, then most likely we have, depending on the subscription type, you might have Power BI as a part of, Power BI services as part of it. So the visuals you create in Power BI desktop, which is the free application, can be taken online, but this requires subscription. That is one important thing to take note of in about Power BI services. So it's online and it's for hosting and sharing of Power BI reports and dashboards, the ones you created with your Power BI desktop. It allows teams to collaborate so you can work together with people from within your team that are in different locations, and it provides advanced features such as data refresh scheduling and automatic report updates, offers secure access control, and it requires subscription with additional premium features for enterprise users. So it is not the free one, it is a paid version, right? But Power BI Desktop is the free one. So you could create certain reports or dashboards in Power BI Desktop, but it will not be possible for you to share it online in real time with your team unless you have the subscription, which is Power BI services. Then the third one is a Power BI mobile. It's a mobile application that allows you to access the reports and all that on the go, meaning in real time, right? It just makes it easy and portable for you to access the reports you have in your Power BI. And you can do this with your mobile device, and it allows you to view and interact with reports from any device, including smartphones and tablets. With this, you could see notifications and important updates about your data, like changes in your data. It's also touch friendly. Um, you can easily navigate and use certain gestures for an intuitive user experience. So those are the three major products within the Power BI ecosystem that we need to know about. At least now we know their differences. All right, we know their differences now. We now move on to different visualization options in Power BI. There are 5 main options, and as you can see, from left to right, the complexity increases, right? So we already talked about the need for these visualization tools, and it will be more obvious, right, as we explain now, being that as you move from left to right, the complexity increases. And what are those complexities? We have core visuals. Core visuals are default visuals that Power BI provides, right? If they, like, we have it launched on my device now. Let me open that. The core visuals are, you could see all this. Everything you see here are different visual options. We have stack bar charts, column, start column charts, clustered. We have the pie chart, donut that we saw before now. We even have the um, so we have the key influencer. We have this tree map, this map, field map, and then a lot of other visuals that come pre-made or inbuilt in Power BI. You don't need any special knowledge. Your basic knowledge of Power BI can help you get a visual from these options, right? So that's the thing to know about that. And it is the least, it is the easiest option available to you, but with constraints in the sense that if a certain visual type is not available by default, you will not be able to use it. Then after that, we have custom visuals consumption. Beyond what you see here, beyond what you see here are also visuals that third-party individuals created, right? So if I come here, if I'm looking for a particular chart and I don't see it here, if I click on these three dots, I can see get more visuals. You can import from a file or click on this get more visuals to go to, but then the downside here is that it might require, okay, you need to um, sign in perhaps. There are some that are free, custom visuals that are free, others are not free. Others will offer you certain features for free, but other features will not be available to you for the same free option, right? So that's the second option available to you. We have Charticulator. Charticulator, the remember the complexity is increasing as we are moving from left to right. With Articulator, you can define your own data relationship, you can define your own custom visuals. So we're now coming to we're now getting closer and closer to custom visuals, right? With Articulator, you can define your own kind of relationships. But I think of late, Microsoft has stopped supporting Articulator. So in future, visuals you create with Articulator might not really work as expected. So it's a nice tool. Unfortunately, there's no support for it. At least to the best of my knowledge, it's no longer supported. The other one here is Power BI, that's R and Python, and you already know that R and Python are programming languages. So you might be wondering what these are, right? You might be wondering what these are. We have R here, we have Python here. We have R script visual, we have Python script visual. So if you have the knowledge of programming and can create visuals with these programming languages, it's also possible with Power BI. You can code in Power BI. Finally, we have custom visuals developed. Now, the difference between R and Python option and then custom visual develop is that for R and Python option, someone somewhere or a team has already created certain visual types. You only just to call the APIs and then those visuals reflect. So you don't need to dig your hands into the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that make up the visuals. But when you now go to the most complex option, which is to develop your own custom visuals, in that case, you would need to start writing extensive HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Similar to what we saw here. Let me go back some slides before now. Similar to what we saw here. Where was that? Yeah, similar to this, right? You and then even this self is still a kind of a way of using we saw Vega, right? You don't need to start creating everything afresh. That's why it was even scaled to 90 something lines of code. But imagine you are the one to create your HTML and CSS and JavaScript that runs this chart. That will be a lot, but it still offers you more flexibility if you have the knowledge of this, if you can create this. But my advice is that for most use cases, you don't really need to go this deep to get what you want, except you are making data analysis your primary, data visual design your primary job, right? It's usually something that developers, those that have the experience with development and software development, do. Our own is to consume as analysts. So, but if you want to explore, you can go out there and explore. So, with all this, we can now proceed to Power BI, and it's at this point that I would give room for you to share your screen, and then you can have a walkthrough of the ecosystem and design a basic chart, which is just a bar chart in Power BI, right? So I will stop sharing my screen now, and then you share yours. So I've stopped sharing, so you can share your screen, and then we can proceed. I hope we are good to go. Hello.
You can't see us. Hello?
Yes.
I
I'm waiting.
can't see your screen.
Yes, I stopped sharing. Can you share now?
I'm using a different device. I'm using a different device.
Okay, so no problem. I
Um,
thought you were on your laptop, right? So that means I would have to share again. Then let me share again, and then let me take the walkthrough. I wanted it to be you taking the walkthrough while I direct, but that's not an issue. Now we have Power BI already launched. I think I'll need to reshare this time.
I have my laptop with me, but I'm on this call. I'm on another device.
Okay, you have your laptop with you. Is it possible to join?
Yeah.
Is it possible to join with your laptop?
Uh, I don't have network on my. Okay, let me try.
Okay.
I don't have network on my laptop.
If it's possible, let's just try first. Then, if it's something that can work, then you can quickly jump into that. Okay, but you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
All right. So the first thing we're going to do is to just have a quick walkthrough of the interface. And when you saw when I launched Power BI and you saw something similar to, if not the same as this screen, right? So when you launch your Power BI, this is what you're going to see by default, especially when you're launching it for the first time. Or you can actually click this so that you don't see it all the time. And the annotations we have here, this is the welcome screen, right? This is the welcome screen. And it's the first thing you see showing that you've successfully launched or installed Power BI on your device, and then you're ready to go. And it presents to us some hotkeys, or should I call it hotkeys? Or let's say some of the things that you likely want to do when you are in Power BI, which is the first few steps. Is either you want to go back to your recent data sources or you want to connect to a new data source. So with this you can easily quickly do that without much clicks. And from here you can open recent files, right? And then other things like that. So this is just like basic welcome. After that, so let me do it in actual Power BI. Yes, I close that out. Now the same thing we saw in the first screen is what we have here now. We I mean in the second screen is what we can see here. Yeah, and then what do they do? The if you look very closely, okay, let me. Oh, sorry. If you come on, if you look very closely to the left, right, you would see there are three different tabs, right? We have report view, we have the table view, we have the model view. And then this is the default, which is the report view. This is where you create your reports or dashboards, right? This is a view where you do that. But when I click to here, for now, I've not connected to any data source, so I may not be able to see any data. But if I have my tables already, right, that I've already modeled, then I would see them listed here, right? The tables here. And I can even see example tables. If I want to have a preview of any of the table, we'll quickly see that. Then this is the model view. And and this is where you create your data connections, right? So I think if time permits, we're going to create a basic model, a basic connection here to see how it works. Now, with that done, we have in the view here, we can get our data from Excel workbook or from SQL Server, or create a blank table, like paste a blank table, or try a sample semantic model and all that. Or you can even create on that, connect to other data source. And if you check very well, you notice that if you observe well, you notice that this is quite similar to um, Power Query that we covered in the previous sections, right? We have it's still the same interface because it's still a Microsoft product, right? I'm sure you can remember we touched on an interface like this. Just that here we still have options to connect to many in Excel. I'm not so sure of the version of Excel we used did not allow us to connect to PDF. Although I'm not so sure if recent versions allow us to do that. But with Power BI, you can actually extract data from Excel. You can actually extract data from text, CSV, and all that. So I would quickly close that. We have the data group, we have the queries, we have the insert, calculation, sensitivity, share, right? So these are what we are familiar with in a way. Everything you see are just different ways, different options for getting our data. It is about transforming data and all that. Then we have the insert tab, and then all we have seen so far is in the home tab. We have the insert tab, mm, we have the modeling, we have the view, we have the optimize and all that. So back to the home tab, right? The next thing, the other thing we should take note of is that in the home screen here, right, under the home screen and then under the report view, we have this canvas. By the time we connect to a data source, we'll be able to create charts here, and the charts we create will be seen here. I can even create a different page, an additional page, right? And then more and more pages. Then after that, we have the filters. You all know what filters are all about. We covered that in power. In pivot tables, right? Then we have this visualization pane. We have filters pane, visualization pane. From here, we can pick the different charts options. Then this is about selecting your chart, the different chart options you have. And just like we did in Power Query, in Power and Pivot tables, right? When we're able to drag our data to different fields, the same applies here, right? You can just drag your data different columns to different fields, and then you have your data showing. And this is where you perform formatting, page information, and all that. Okay, so this is where you see the underlying data. We've not connected to any data source. The first thing I would want to do is I would just quickly create a chart, because that's the first thing we that's the main purpose of this class, right? So let me follow the slides. I've covered this part: the table view, the model view, the reports view. Then going through that, we've also seen the visualization pane, the filters and all that. Then the other one is loading your data into Power Query, Power BI desktop. Now, there are many options like we've already seen. Let's use in one of our sample data sets, and I'm beginning to favor our sample superstore data, even for this session. Although we have other sample data, but it just offers us what we need, and there's no point just changing it. So let's just stick to that. We can get it. It's in a CSV file. Let me confirm. I've created session 2, right? Let me copy the data for today's session and paste here the data set. Let me copy the sample superstore data set and paste like we've always done. Or instead of that, okay, the one we've already cleaned, although this session is not supposed to be on data cleaning, but we can still achieve the data cleaning here. So to save time, I'll quickly copy the one we've cleaned, which we did in, I guess, session 2, and then transform the Power Query, copy it, then go back here and then paste it. So I'll have everything in one place with two, session 2, then I paste, right? So we'll connect to this data source and it's in Excel worksheet format, .xlsx, right? So the option that makes sense in our case is to choose an Excel workbook, but we have all these other options to explore, right? If it were a CSV file, I would click on text/CSV, right? So in this case, I can click here, or I will just simply click here directly to take me to my file directory, and then I go to section 2, which is the folder containing the data here. So I now have transformed with Power Query. I click on that to select the data and give you some time to load, right? So depending on the size of the data, loading might take a longer time than now. So we are in this, once again, this is Power Query that we are all familiar with. And let's preview our data. Yeah, in this case, we don't have much to do with this data, to do on this data in terms of data transformation, because we've already cleaned this data. The same process, the same procedure we followed to transform our data in Power Query, and is what we have to follow. So I have to select. If I'm selecting multiple tables, I can just quickly check the box next to each of the tables I'm interested in. So let me confirm that this is the cleaned one. This is the cleaned one. Is it? Yes. Returned manager. Yeah, this is the cleaned one. So I can quickly load. But if I want to transform it with Power Query like we always did in the previous classes, I would, instead of load, I would click on transform data, right? I'll click on transform data. So for now, I'll click on load, right? Click on load to load the data and then take us to the next step. So it's taking its time. Okay, so I guess by now it should have finished loading. Okay, still loading. And I guess my system is quite slow because I'm doing a lot of recording and all that. Okay, so it has finished loading, and just watch how the interface changed because we now have data loaded in Power BI, right? So let's go back to our different tabs again and see that you could notice that many of these options that were disabled before have now been enabled because data is there. So we can now have more options than before, right? So let me go back, and then in the table view, let's see what table view would now look like. Before it was just looking empty, right? But now we have, I guess it's coming up. We have the table, yeah, we have our table. Each of the data, if I had more than one table, I would have them listed here, this right side of the screen. I can choose to hide this so that I have more screen space, right? But I can also do it on fold this, right? Or bring it back. Or here, sorry, this very option might not really be so obvious in terms of what we are using it for because we are not modeling the data now. Modeling your data is when you want to connect multiple tables. That's what you mostly do. But here you can see that we have the different columns in our data. We have the category, city, customer ID, and the rest. So let's assume I had other tables. We are going to see how to model data in the next session when we work with the oldest orders data, and then how to see how to connect those data. That's if time permits us. So let's go back to the reports view, right? And then you can also see our data here. And if I click to expand, I would see the different columns that make up the data. In addition to that, I can see the kind of operation like this one now. I can see that this is a numerical data, right? I can see this summation next to it. So I can apply it's indirectly telling me the data type, that this is the number, numerical type. This is the date time and all that, right? These are text, right? So what can I do here? Let's say I want to plot a simple um, bar chart, right? Stack bar chart here. So having selected that, we have it here on this canvas, and then if you watch very well, I have these options: expand, right? So we have the X and the Y, right? Let's say I want to plot sales. Let's say I want to make a plot of sales across different, let's say, customer. Might have customer segments here or subcategory. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So what will I do next? Where is my sales value? This is my sales, right? Can drag sales here to this field, and then let me drag it to the subcategory, right? So with this, we have our basic bar chart, which shows us breakdown of sales by subcategory. And it did not take us, how many minutes did it take us to achieve this? I did not check. But if you were to do this with maybe writing your own code, you will definitely spend more time to do this than we spent here. Then we've created a basic chart, right? What are the other things that we might want to do? Let's say we want to apply um, filters, right? Or one thing you'll notice here is that the aggregation applied to here is sum, right? It's automatically performed sum of sales, which makes sense in our case. But if I have maybe I want to do other things other than ordinary, let's say I want to change the aggregation type to average or minimum, maximum, and all that, then this is where I can choose that, right? So as I change the operation, the aggregation option, I can now see the different listing, right? I want to see the maximum. I can see that machines recorded the highest number of the highest sales value, maximum sales value, right? We all know what maximum means. The one that, let's say, the most expensive, sort of across the different categories, right? Where you find that, or minimum, mm, whatever option applies to you. We have copiers, right? And all that, but it makes more sense to use sum, right? It just makes more sense to use sum. What are the other things we can do here? Mm, If I want to see a subset of this data, maybe there are some categories I don't want to see, right? That's what filter helps me do. So let me say sum of sales. There, we just apply certain logic here, right? If I click on this angle icon, we already have like we just follow the logic. Sum of sales is, this is why I apply my logic, less than, greater than, is greater than or equal to, is not, or is, like, just follow the logic. So let's say we want to see some of, sales value that are greater than let's say 1 million. So I can now see, or greater than or equal to 1 million. I want to see from 1 million and above. So I click on greater than or equal to. Let me enter my value here. 1 million, right? I click on apply filter. I go. Let's type more zeros. What happened? Okay, let me go back. Maybe the highest value there is not even up to the amount I entered. That could be the cause. Okay, yeah, you could see here that the highest sales value here is 0.3 million. I mean, it's around 300 and something thousand, not even up to a million. Yeah, that was where I made the mistake. Okay, let's say 100,000, right, which is 0.1 million. I can say sum of sales is greater than or equal to 100,000. Then I'll do that again. Yeah, you can now see that it's showing me a subset of the data, which is for values that are at least 1 million, I mean 100,000. And I can apply more logic to this, right? I can apply more logic to this, and then I can even click here again. Maybe I'm looking for something within a range, right? I don't have any blank data here, so I would have said is not blank, right? Let me apply for is not blank, so that, but then it does not make sense in our case. Apply filter, right? And then, but don't need this one. Don't need this one. So the summary is that from here you can apply different filter options. You can remember that filtering is about selecting a subset of your data, right? Instead of if you don't want to see everything. That's what filtering does for us. And then what are the other things we can play around with? Let me change this. I now want it to, I just changed my mind. I don't want it to be stacked. I want it to be column bar chart. But instead of me to have to start writing code from scratch, I just needed to select it. I selected it first, then I now came here to the visual options here. Let me change it back to what it was, and then simple like as ABC. I can change my different visuals, right? And let me make this one more kind of appealing, right? So I have my first visual built, and then what are the other ones you can play around with? Let's also see from you can plot a kind of a line chart, right? So I click on line chart. What are the values I have here that I can use to plot a line chart? I still have my sales value, right? I still have my sales value. And remember what line chart does for us. Let me say I want to see time series information. Where is my order date? This is my order date. I can drag this to x-axis. Then I don't need it in, I just need the year to keep things simple. I'll remove these options. Then the other value I would want to drag is sales, right? Let me drag this one to Y. Okay, so I have just 4 years here, so it may not really show me much, but this shows, at least it gives some insight that in 2014, the year we launched, I made up to 0.5 million. But why did I fall so low in 2015 to about 470k? So it could be something worth looking at. But then by this time, I rose up again in 2016, and since 2016, things have been so smooth, right? So at least it's something to hold on to. And then this is occupying so much space on my screen. Let me just adjust it back. Mm, so I just don't have much years here. That's why it's showing as it is now. What are the other options we can play around with? We have the pie chart here. Let me show something like a breakdown of we have our values and then our this. So let's see if where's my customer? I mean customer segment. I'm still looking for this column. Where is it? The segment. This work. No. Let me drag this one to value first. And then segment. Yeah. So we have a breakdown of our customers, like sales by customer segments, right? What does this tell us? From here, we can see that consumers, in terms of sales volume, right? In terms of sales volume, consumers constitute the biggest cluster, right? Consumers constitute the biggest cluster in my sales volume, right? In terms of sales volume. Then what are the other ones? What are the other things we can do here? Um, One thing you will notice here is that everything here is just you clicking an icon and then plugging your data to, and it's similar to what we have been doing all this while. In Power Pivot Table, we had the sections that we can connect our data field. I mean our data. I mean value field. We have the X. I mean column. We have the row. Then we have the filter. Right. Just that it looks a bit different here. These are the filters here in this case. Right. These are filters here. Then these are like the data fields. But then with additional options, of course, we can add tooltips and all that. Then this the columns in my data that I can drag to. So in my case, depending on the data you are working with, depending on the type of data, let me select this um, bar chart that I already selected before. I mean that I already created before. When I select it, you could see that the options here, the fields here change. Here we have the x-axis, we have the y-axis, right? But here shows me a different thing. Here I'm just seeing legend and value, and that's because the type of data, the type of visual you selected can influence the type of visual option. I mean the type of visual you selected will influence the field options that are available to you, right? So that's an important thing to take note of. And what are the other things? I can fold this so that I can have more space for myself. And what are the other things we can play around with? Let me just put this here. We have, let me check the slides again and know if there are some key things we are missing. We have, okay, we've created a visual. I think I've exhausted the slides. So just a kind of a brief walkthrough of the interface. And with this, we can see how to get different charts to our Power BI. There are still other chart options available to us, like the maps. There's a field map, the scatter chart. So let's try out a few more, right? The issue with map is that you need to have a column that represents the location, right? Or it's either you have a column representing the location or the latitude and longitude, or two columns representing latitude and longitude or other similar location information. So in our case, it might work because the data we have is US data, right? The data we have is US data, so those locations might show, right? So here it's saying, giving me an error that map and field map visuals are disabled. To enable them, go to File, Options and Settings, and then Options, Global and Security. Okay, I have to enable that first. File, Options and Settings, Options, global. Okay, so this is a new device. I'm not sure I've worked with Power BI on this device. So let's follow. Where's the global option here? Global. Let's enable that. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Global and options. Global and security. Okay, security. Yeah. So where is enable field and map? Use map and field map visual. This is where you enable that in case you run into that issue. Then okay. So let me just click on that again. Maybe it might require me to relaunch. If it's going to do that, that means I might have to let go of this very map that we want to plot. So where is state? We have state here. Let's see if we drag state to here. Okay, we have it will take some time to load, right? It will take some time because you need to download the information. Then I mean the yeah, as expected. So it takes some time to load and then download the location information. So from here, I can see the different states, right? And then the sales value, because this is a US data, I expected this to work. But if it's in another country other than US, if you just enter states, you may not get something uh, displaying correctly because it may not recognize those locations. So in that case, it makes more sense to have your longitude and latitude column, or you have your ISO 3 location, I mean ISO 3 ID for whichever region you are interested in. Like ISO 3 is just some standardized um, short codes to represent countries and maybe different parts of the world. Let's say ISO 3 um, country codes, right? So you should make sure that your data has this. You can see it on if you don't have the data for that, you can check external data sources. You'll find them on GitHub or other platforms. Let's see list of countries. Let me check it out on Wikipedia and see what it looks like. These are the different ways to represent like short, well established should I call it abbreviations for every country. Nigeria would be what? Where is Nigeria? This is Nigeria. NGA, right? Sorry. Nigeria is NGA. Niger is NER. This is Niger and all that. So with this code, it's since it's standardized, different visualization options can also allow us to plug in the code instead, right? So, but this is a US data that we are working with, and it will work because US is well known and all that. Let me try and recreate that map again. And where is it again? This and, drag this. Where is my sales? Where is my region? Um, where is my city? Okay.
So is this all sorry I'm asking.
Sorry?
Like is this thing online? Are you using data to do this?
Yes.
Okay, because I heard you saying city Nigeria too and at the US I feel like it's something that is current that is using web.
Okay. No, I'm online. I have to be online.
Oh, you got what I mean, right?
Come again. Maybe I did not get. Maybe I answered the wrong
Like
thing.
I mean, like this process you are doing now it requires internet service, right?
Yes.
Okay, alright. Thank you. I've been on and off. Sorry, I'm asking, but I just asked this one.
No problem.
Yeah, well done.
You're welcome. So let's try another map and see what will happen. Mm, where's the country? I mean the state. Let's try the state again. Where's state? Or city. City would work. Let me try city since we'll have more points in city than just states. That are limited. So location, city. Then you see that since all our cities are within, okay, coming up. Now let's try and bubble size. In this case now, let's the size of our bubble is going to be the sales value. I want to see which state has the highest sales values. Right? I want to see a breakdown of sales value by state. Come on. So we can now see that um, that the sorry, well, this is showing me the whole map of the world, right? So we would need to somehow brush that up. Mm, okay. So these places don't have any data. What did I select actually? Okay, well, maybe let's just take this class for um, kind of a walkthrough and just play around with different options. But in another class, if someone should remind me, we'll find a way to scope, like to define the scope of this data, so that we can limit it to only US because our data is only covering US, right? And then there's no point having all these other places. And you can see that it's not even letting me to zoom in as much as I would like to. So what this type of map shows you is that the region, the size of the bubble shows you regions with the highest sales, right? Shows you regions with the highest sales. So let me see if I can achieve that here. Okay, another option. Okay, let's create another chart type here. Now, what you will notice is that I have created three different worksheets, right? Just like we did in a Power Query, I mean in Excel, right? Once your data or your visuals span across more than one screen, you are no longer creating a dashboard, you are now creating a report. That's one thing. But then this is just a kind of a play around, right? It's just like a play around that we are doing here. So, but it's one of those things to keep in mind. That is when you now start hearing reports and the dashboard, it's easy to mix them up. But these are the main things that differentiate them. So let's try this tree map and see how you can see the different fields available to us here. We have category, then detail and value, right? Of course, you know what category is now, and then which one should be our value. Since we're interested in our sales data, I can simply drag value sales to value, and then what are the categories I want to show? Let me show different states, or yeah, let me show different categories. Let me drag that to category and see. Okay, so with this now we have the area of the block here shows me the value size. So technology in terms of sales has the highest sales value, followed by perhaps this. Well, it makes more sense if we have more categories. So let me pull this one out and then plug in one that will give me more category. Let's say something like city, like we did before. Which will not result in overplotting. Oh my god, as I expected, it's so much to comprehend. Yeah, it makes it so messy. So But then at least I know that New York is leading, followed by Los Angeles and Seattle, San Francisco, and the rest. Okay, let me make things easy for us to comprehend. I can just limit it to, let me limit it to, let me remove this state. At least I'll have fewer states than number of cities. So selecting state at least gives me something like this. I know that California gives recorded the highest sales, followed by New York, then Texas, California, and Washington, Pennsylvania, Florida, and just in that order. So with this, you can also a very typical use case of this type of chart is that when you want to show different companies with their, let's say, stock and all that, stock rankings and all that. With this alone, you can see their trade volumes or whatever thing you want to show. So what are the other options available to us now? Scatter charts. Okay, let's see. So this does not really take much time to comprehend because it even offers you tips. Like now in scatter, we already mentioned during the walkthrough that in scatter you typically want to use scatter when you are comparing two numerical, let's say two or more numerical, right? So let me drop my sales once again. Then versus will it make sense to show sales and no. All right, let's try sales and profit. That is two numerical and see what it looks like. Okay, will it make sense? No. Does not make sense. Let me just close this out. Close this. So where's sales? Okay, I already selected sales. So where is my profit? Come on. Oh, what did I do like this? I did them to the wrong place. Where is profits? My device is hanging at this point. Okay. See what happens. Okay. At least we have this chart that's not looking so nice. And at least I have two numerical values, right? I have two numerical values, and then I can show a plot of that. I can use a scatter plot to visualize that. So instead of sales value and profit, let me try sales and quantity sold. Let me try sales and quantity sold. Let's quantity. Taking time. Quantity sold. I think my device is hanging at this point. I can't explain why. Okay, that's a nice view, but then at least we can see that most of our data are clustered somewhere um, around this. Well, these are just some play around though. It's not like expected to be a brush up, a kind of a clean job. So
I want to ask
okay,
can I ask,
yes.
is it like it's supposed to look better than this because you're talking about how it's not looking nice and everything? Or is the main thing about data about how it's looking?
Okay, yeah. Number one thing is that eh, in terms of the way it's appearing now, it's a it's due to the relationship within the data, right? Due to the relationship between the data, it shows that there's a kind of a cluster around this area, right? So that most people, most sales are usually, let's say, people, most of our customers are purchasing, let's say, low in terms of quantity, low quantity at the same time, low sales value, right? Right? So there are just a few cases whereby we have people purchasing maybe certain products, certain product categories that cost less. You could see that the sales axis moves from left to right. So as from left shows the least, right shows the highest. Like this should be the highest in our data points, right? Then the same for quantity,
Yeah.
least to highest. So this value here is showing the highest quantity which corresponds with certain sales value. If I hover in here, I can see the sales value is $32, $32.4, then quantity is 140, I mean items, right? 140 items. Then but then as I move my mouse towards the right, I can see that like the insight you can draw from here is that most of our sales value usually cluster around the low end side of the screen, like cluster around somewhere close to zero. And it's difficult to really fathom because I can't really see much correlation here. Like there's no clear correlation between quantity sold and then the actual sales value. So it's an inherent problem, an inherent issue with the data itself. But then in terms of brushing up, we can brush up by maybe toggling all these grid lines you are seeing. I might choose to show them, I might choose not to show them. I might choose to show this value as a different color. I might choose to edit this one to look nicer and all that. So those are maybe making it to align more with your brand ID, your brand entity and all that. Those are where you now start doing brush up, right? So that's what I was trying to explain. But the class for today is just to have a kind of quick walkthrough of that. We're already 10 minutes outside of our normal schedule. But I don't know, do you still have more time so that I can just quickly show us how to do the modeling thing? You have a few more minutes to spare.
Yeah, if you can do that, then maybe when we are watching it again, I'll understand that.
Okay,
That this is okay, by the way. It's not going to be too much for you, right?
no problem at all. I'll just quickly show that.
Alright.
Now I want to show data modeling, and then we in a way would need to get a different data because this one is just a single data, right? But I can still do that with this data. Remember, this is the already claimed data that we have. So I can choose to let me remove this, delete from model. I will delete this. Let me delete this and start afresh. Yes. When I delete this, everything I've designed is gone and all that. Unless I reconnect it. So I just want to create something new, right? So I'm back to scratch, right? Back to scratch. And delete this, delete this as well. Then delete this as well. Finally, I will delete this. So I just want to quickly show you something how to model data. So the data we're going to work on, let me quickly share the kind of relationship between the data, the oldest data set. So go back to our data set and then list. Under list, we have two main. We have this marketing funnel and then the others. Under others, we have this list of data. So, but to know the relationship that exists among your data, you need to open the schema. I think we covered this briefly in the previous class, right? So we have the others table, which contains the main data, which is the can see it in red, which is the fact table. That's the one that contains the meat of the entire data. So every other thing is just like a way of let's say breaking this whatever into different dimensions, like to add more granularity to it. But this is the main data in our data bank, or that. Now I would want to connect two tables. Okay, I don't want to connect reviews. Reviews might be too heavy. I want to connect the orders and then the different payment methods that they used, and then also want to connect the orders and then the customers that place the order, right? So I just want to connect these three tables together. So let me open this. Let me go back here and then load the data. Get data, and they are in a what format? Is it Excel workbook? Then CSV format. So this time around, we're not going to choose Excel workbook. We're going to choose a CSV, right? Let me connect to this. I can bring them one after the other and merge, or I can load them as a folder, but I don't want to load everything. So let me just pick them one after the other, or select on multiple tables here. The tables I wanted to merge are what? Orders, order payments, and the order customer. Okay, this whole list customer. I select. Then let me see where is the payment. This one. Okay. Let me bring this the main whole list orders first, which is this. Sorry. I can bring this one. What's happened? Okay, it's loading, I guess. Okay, yeah. Am I doing any transformation? I doubt. I don't have time for any transformation. This is just quickly to load. Come on. Take some time. Apologies for this. I think I connected my phone. So I was always afraid of this data because it's a big one. It takes time to load and all that. So not sorry?
I said it's fine.
Okay. So
Are you going to talk tomorrow?
sorry? Can I hear you again?
I said, are you going to talk tomorrow?
Am I going to
Talk tomorrow, talk.
of course. Oh, it's true, tomorrow is it's true. Oh, I almost forgot. Okay, don't worry, let me just
No, no,
shorten
no,
the
no.
process.
No, I was just joking. Just do your stuff. Like I was just like,
Let me bring
do
the
your
second
stuff.
one. Let me bring the second table, and then it should not take so long, I guess. Okay, let me just load it. Then let me bring the third one, which is customers. It will take time to load. Come on, it's late. Okay, loaded. I'll bring the third one, and I promise I will not do beyond this. So I go back again, text slash CSV, which is order customer. Order customer. Where is it? Okay, I think it has a different name here. I think it's seller. If I'm not missing it. Okay, this is seller. Well, in that case, I can't see order customer dataset. Why is it not showing? Payment review dataset product seller category and what? Okay, maybe I did not okay, yeah, I've seen customer. I think I saw it somewhere. Yeah, it's the first one actually. So I select that and give it time to load as well. Now, as they are now, let's wait for the third one to load. As they are now, there are three different data sets not connected in any way, right? There's no way I can pull information from one across the other unless I define the model relationship. So that's what we are going to do here when it's done loading. And that is the case now. So we can see our different tables here. This is the first, this is the second, and then this is the third. So let's go back to model. You see that there is, unless it's, yes, great. It's smart enough to have guessed the connection between our different data, right? So we select it and then let's see if we can break. Let me delete here. So I will show it to you from scratch. What happened here is that if you go back to the, let me delete this one too. If you go back to the schema here, you could see that orders ID is connected to the orders payment using, we have the orders table is connected to the orders payment using the order ID column, right? So order order ID is the common column here. Then we have payment. Yeah. So where is the, this is the orders table. So let me arrange it. Let me bring it, since that's the main table. The, the it's nice to have it at the center, right? Once I have it as the center, for this so that we can see something. Yeah, I have this at the center. Let me bring this one to the side, and then this one to the side as well, just so that you can have something not looking so messed up. Now, order, you can see order ID here. You can see order ID here, right? So we need to now connect this table by what? Drag this one. Is that anything? It's not open now. Okay, yeah. So you saw what I just did. I dragged this one to this one. So there's now a connection between this one and this one. You see, when I highlight on this table, on this line, you can now see that the common columns have been joined together. If I remove it, you can see order. When I take it back, you will see order ID here, order ID here highlighted. So I'll take it back again, right? So here now, going back to the customers and then orders. Customers and orders are joined by the customer ID column. So where is customer ID column? This customer ID, this customer ID. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll drag this one to customer ID and give it time to join. So that is also done. So when
I'm not I'm not seeing how something is dragging, sir. I don't know if it's network on my end.
okay, so can you confirm, Norma, can you confirm if you saw what I did?
Yeah, I said I did not see your cursor moving like to connect something.
But can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
What where
Delete relationship. I'm seeing delete relationship.
what is showing now?
I'm seeing three sets of data, all these payments and all these other data sets. I'm seeing that they are connected.
Okay, you are not seeing updated screen. I think my screen is not updating again or something similar. But can you, did you see me expand? Can you see what I'm clicking on now?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not seeing anything like
Oh, I think it's
I'm just seeing a static screen.
okay. It's no longer updating.
But is it going to be like when you upload the video, is it going to be showing?
Yeah, it's sure. So let
Because
me.
I just saw something else. I'm seeing PowerPoint now, sir.
Okay, what about now? Can you see my screen? My because I'm
Move it, let me move it. Move it again.
I'm moving it.
I'm not seeing it too.
Okay, let me just quickly do this last one. I think we've even exhausted our time. You still get it in the recording. So I'll just simply drag the customer ID to the customer ID field and then give it some time to join. And then the relationship has been established by this line I'm seeing here. So
I'm actually seeing like something, but it's slow, sir.
okay. on this network, I guess. So having done this, I have connected my tables, and then I can just bring them here so it to be more obvious. So when I go back here to the report view, I can pull columns from any of these table together, and I'll be able to create visual. So we have to end the class now because we've exhausted the time, and I hope the recording would be
But
able to
are you
take
able to
it.
finish everything like this?
Sorry?
Like, were you able to finish the modeling like this?
Yes, but I just did the basic modeling. I did not start transforming data because we already covered that in a data in Power Query, right? We did that in
Okay.
Power Query. So, but then if the need arises, we can still show how to transform data in a Power BI.
Okay.
Yeah. So today is just to show a basic creation of charts, how to create a visual, and then before you joined, we covered the theoretical thing about data visualization. So we had
Okay, just remember about that cooking piece of data.
sorry.
Remember about that scope that you said I
That's
should remind you. That scope that you said I should remind you about UL.
okay. Code.
No, scope of data or map that you said
Okay, okay, yes, yes. We will handle that in the next class.
have you uploaded that the previous video?
Yes, all videos up to date have been uploaded.
Eh,
Yes.
okay, I'll check. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very